When you're the mayor and you're leading the Memorial Day bike parade and 1,000 kids are riding their bikes behind you, or you're in the boat for the offshore Grand Prix, you control everything. And if you have a strong council that's with you and you've shown that you're leading the town in the right direction, you can essentially accomplish anything. But I got frustrated. It was 1.5 square miles, 4,500 residents in the off season. And I just got increasingly more and more frustrated with the craziness coming out of our state house in Trenton. And that's why I decided to make the pivot. And now I represent 16 towns on the Jersey Shore. And I'm able to speak with a larger voice and get a little bit more accomplished.
Hello and welcome to the ALEC 51st Annual Meeting in Denver, Colorado. I'm joined here today by New Jersey Assemblyman Paul Kanitra. And Paul, coming to us all the way from Jersey, all the way from the East Coast. I would think the biggest shock that you have to have in your system when we're talking from Jersey to Colorado is we have no humidity here.
You know what? For 95 degrees yesterday, it was actually pretty dry. So to make the journey, and by the way, when I registered for ALEC, they called me to say that I was the first person coming from New Jersey in many years. So I'm glad to have made the journey here to drier climates.
Well, I think it's very important that people like yourselves from the New Jerseys, from the New Yorks, from the Illinois, the Californias, those areas where we would think, well, they might not be as receptive to policies based on the ideas of limited government, free markets, and federalism. But we do have people there. We do have people that, if nothing else, are in need there, and you need to pound the drum.
Of course. And look, the average American everywhere is against extremism, right? So when you come to ALEC and you see the deep red states and you see the initiatives that they're able to move forward, that's vitally important to the future of the country. But in states like New Jersey that are bluer, being able to keep extremist ideas from becoming law is equally as important too. So it's been important for me to be here this week to learn about everything that's been going on nationally and how I can bring that back to the Garden State.
Right. And, at ALEC, we do try to sort of give you the reasonable, the common sense. And it's interesting to see how that's received. As a person who deals with the media a lot, I get tons of inquiries about, they say that you guys are trying to do this. Like, favorite one says that you're trying to outlaw protesting. I said, no, we say that if during a protest that you trespass and then damage property, that you can be charged.
Seems fair.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think that's anti-protest, that's anti-destroying things. And, while there might be a movement in this country, as we've seen in a number of jurisdictions, I don't know if New Jersey is quite as crazy as we've seen in the places that are saying that if you're stealing less than $1,000 worth of goods, that's all right.
We're not currently. Our Governor Murphy has said that he wants us to be more like California, but luckily New Jersey is a family-focused place. They're not extremists. They're not for a lot of these progressive ideals. But again, in state government, the reality is you and I know what's going on in state government. All the people behind us know what's going on in state government. The average person, regardless of what state it is, doesn't even know what an assemblyman is, okay? They don't really understand the nuances between state and federal government. They're just trying to put food on the table, too. So in states like New Jersey that are blue controlled, we'll say, they're able to push things through simply because people aren't paying attention. So it's up to legislators like myself to get creative. We do cartoons, we do all kinds of video content. We try and simplify the message as much as humanly possible so that people really understand, wow, this is crazy and this is not something I want.
Well, it's the sad part is, though, that you do see some people that are like, that's not just crazy enough. So in New Jersey, my usual question when I'm talking to people like this, like, what have you been able to do? What have you been able to accomplish? And I'm guessing that the majority of what you've been able to accomplish is to maybe hopefully slow down.
Exactly.
Stop if you're lucky, but slow down anything else. Is there any way for somebody in the great state of New Jersey to pass anything that is pro-limited government, pro-free market?
Mostly we're on defense, okay? I've gotten a couple bills through in just the 6 months I've been in the assembly. They've been common sense, middle-of-the-road legislation dealing with cybersecurity and cyber intrusions in schools, dealing with police and veterans that become police officers and the time in that's needed to make it all legitimate. But on the defensive side of things, the more that you make it approachable, I think the better that you're able to do. So on immigration issues, we issued a comprehensive 24-page report after I went down to the border, went down to the Mexican border, and saw firsthand how our blue state policies were literally incentivizing people in Latin America to come across the border, because they knew if you come to New Jersey, you're going to be safe. You're not going to have any fear of being sent back home. You're going to get all these benefits. And we quantified in a $56 billion budget that $7 billion of it, directly or indirectly, was the result of illegal immigration. And that went statewide. It went national.
$7 billion?
Yeah, $7 billion. 1 out of every 10 people walking around the streets in New Jersey is an illegal immigrant. And the costs are so staggering that President Trump, when he was in Wildwood, which, by the way, was one of his biggest rallies ever, 60,000 plus people there,
Okay.
He cited our report when he was in Wildwood, New Jersey, and talked about the staggering figures himself.
You know, it has been interesting over the past few years when you see Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis sending those who are coming over illegal into their states up to your New Jerseys, New
Yes.
Yorks, your Illinois, and all that, and how they are bristling. Is like, oh my Lord, how are we supposed to deal with this? And it comes back to the realization that that's what those states are dealing with every day.
Right.
But you were able to pass something. It wasn't necessarily, we're not reworking the state budget, and we're not putting forth all these other interesting free market policies, but it is something. So I think that's a great lesson for some. You know, while you might not get the top 1 or 2 or 3 things on your list, there is still a way to move things when it comes to the more common sense legislation.
Exactly. And look, I'm a policy wonk. I've done federal lobbying on a federal lobbying firm. It's been my whole career. So I love this. I'm a nerd for this stuff. And you do find at the state level, some of the legislative staff don't have the subject matter expertise that they do on the federal level. So you give them a bill idea and you get something somewhat generic back. If you have the wherewithal to actually go in and educate yourself on these issues, and ALEC is a great forum for that, you can go back, you can give an idea to OLS or whatever your version is in the States, and they can reword it yourself to make it something that is going to have a chance of getting passed, which I think is everybody's goal, right?
Right, yeah. And in this annual meeting, we're looking at 82 potential model policies that people are going over. What are you on a task force yet? Have you jumped on? Which ones are you?
I am. In fact, I just found out that my 2 task forces are combined, a joint meeting tomorrow,
So
international relations and homeland security. And I came
and
up,
I believe you guys have topped the charts for this annual meeting at, I think it's 17 model policies.
yeah,
that are under
there's
consideration.
a lot coming through. And
So we'll see you sometime next week after you guys
I
get
have
out
a
of
flight.
that.
I have a flight at 2:30. The meeting ends at 12:15, so it can't go over for me, or I got to get out the door. But look, I cut my teeth as a beach town mayor, and our tourism economy was completely destroyed by a lot of the blue state policies that affect law and order and the ability for police to do their job and the ability for us to create a safe environment for families. So these committees are right up my alley, and the policies that are going through are ones that I really care about.
It's interesting. You started off as a beach town mayor. I'm wondering, it's like, are you feeling like there's got to be the difference in what sort of impact you have and how things, I mean, granted, what you're doing now is more of a statewide impact, but there, I'm guessing as the mayor, you have a little bit more hands-on. You're able to change a little quicker, faster, easier.
It's definitely a change in thinking and attitude, right? When you're the mayor and you're leading the Memorial Day bike parade and 1,000 kids are riding their bikes behind you, or you're in the boat for the offshore Grand Prix, you control everything. And if you have a strong council that's with you and you've shown that you're leading the town in the right direction, you can essentially accomplish anything. But I got frustrated. It was 1.5 square miles, 4,500 residents in the off season. And I just got increasingly more and more frustrated with the craziness coming out of our state house in Trenton. And that's why I decided to make the pivot. And now I represent 16 towns on the Jersey Shore. And I'm able to speak with a larger voice and get a little bit more accomplished.
Fantastic. Okay. And I know that usually when you're dealing with those from New Jersey and you throw a New York thing in there, it's usually uncomfortable. But
okay, I'm ready.
On all this, one of the big things, at least that I've noticed, that's definitely hitting the people up and down in the beach towns and throughout the state of New Jersey, or at least in the northern part, is the proposed New York there was the traveler consumption tax, whatever. They want to tax those that are coming in from New Jersey to work in New York.
Right.
I imagine that is not too popular overall. And has that been stalled? Has that been stopped, or is they're still under discussion?
There's a great group in New Jersey called Jersey First, and they have all these interns that are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And they just talked to me about this the other day, where they're trying to figure out how do you mitigate that situation, right? And the reality is, New York City doesn't have the workforce that they need to accomplish all the open positions that they have. They need New Jersey. So there needs to be some way for us to push back on that, right?
And for those at home that don't know, what's the actual tax? What are they trying to do there?
So it's a system of bridges and tolls that go into New Jersey. Sometimes there's derogatory terms that use the term bridge and tunnel related to that commuting situation. And because they have a gateway tunnel that they're working to subsidize, there is just an ever increasing amount of tolls going in.
But it was like something crazy, like $40-$50 a day.
Right. Is what it would wind up being for like the average commuter.
Just to drive into work.
And look, you are getting more probably in your salary in New York City in some positions. But there's a lot of people from New Jersey that are just going in for blue collar jobs, right? And if you're going into New York City and you're going to make $40,000-$50,000 for your commute or less in some positions, how on God's green earth can you afford that, right? But they're trying to pass the buck, and it's certainly not something that we're very supportive of in New Jersey.
So, it's interesting to see it, but it's great to see people like yourself who are there, like fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
You know, it might not be. You're not standing on top of the mountain looking over all of your victories, but you are making your way up the hill. So we thank you for going out there, fighting the fight, and trying to make the difference there. Again, this is Paul Kanitra. Kanitra. Did I leave out? Oh, there's an R right there. Paul Kanitra, New Jersey State Assemblyman, here at the ALEC 51st Annual Meeting in Denver, Colorado.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that.